give praise, esteem, and honor to the Most High Yah by way of Yahushua HaMashiach this day. Let's go to John 5:39. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. I come in my Abba's name, and you receive me not. Another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one of another, and seek not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Do not think that I will accuse you to Abba. There is one that accuse you, even Moses, in whom you trust. For had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? Exodus chapter 34. Exodus chapter 34. We will read Exodus 34 and 1. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, hew thee 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables which thou break. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor herds feed before that mount. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning, and went up unto Mount Sinai, as Yahuwah had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. So we're going to come back, double back, and look at the tables of stone. That's why we here to focus in on that. Of course, we should remember that the word tables is the word luach. And when we get to that luach, we know we're looking at the lamad, the u, and the kat, or the teaching of the sacrifice that separates. He told you. Well, let's look at something else. Exodus chapter 30. Actually, Exodus chapter 24. Before we go to Exodus 32. So we have to remember that these 2 tables, these tables of stone, the table of which is what is the word is actually written on, is telling you about, is teaching you about a sacrifice that will separate you. A sacrifice that will separate you. Exodus 24 and 12. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone, and a Torah and commandments which I have written, that thou may teach them. So again, we remember Torah, and we remember what that is. That's telling us about to behold the sacrifice of the head. And that this Torah, this sacrifice that's telling you to behold, this is written on tables of stone, or these tables that are telling you about a sacrifice that will separate you. So keep that in mind as we proceed to move just a tad bit on down the line. We know from Exodus 32 that he said that these tables of stone. Well, let's just read it. Exodus 32. Let's just read it. So at the end of the day, the word of Elohim, whether you deal with Torah, whether you deal with the tables that is written on, is telling you consistently about a sacrifice. And the sacrifice will cause a sanctification, a separation, a kadeshness, a consecration. Whatever words you want to use to say the same thing. We want Exodus 32 and 15. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tables of the testimony were in his hand. The tables were written on both of their sides. On the one side and on the other were they written. And the tables were the work of Elohim, and the writing was the writing of Elohim, graven upon the tables. This writing was graven upon the tables. Again, and the word for write is kathab, and that's again another thing that's telling us about an engraving. An engraving. and I'm building towards something. And it's kathab on both ends. I'm in the wrong verse also, so that will help. Now the word graven is karath, and that is also to be engraved. And again, just sitting looking at that, that word leads off with a separation. With that kot, it's going to give us that kot. So again, it's got a separation again. All of these things, when you're looking at, these are the things that are graven upon the tables. And you're dealing with this separation and this sacrifice. So we have to look at that, and we have to pay attention to that. So the first thing that I want to look at is 1 John chapter 10. I mean, not 1 John chapter 10, but John chapter 10, verse 30, because there is no 1 John chapter 10. And then we will start to go in. John 10 and 30. I and my Abba are one. Then the Yahudim took up stones again to stone him. Yahushua answered them, Many good works have I showed you from my Abba. For which of these works do ye stone me? The Yahudim answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, because thou, being a man, make thyself Elohim. Yahushua answered them, It is not written in your Torah, I said, Ye are gods. If he called them gods unto whom the word of Elohim came, then the scripture cannot be broken. Say ye of him whom Abba hath sanctified and sent into the world, Thou blaspheme, because I said I am the son of Elohim. He said Abba sanctified him and set him into the world. He set him apart for that said cause. Now, what would cause a man to be set apart for that said cause? It was because of the sacrifice that he was going to make. We need to look at that sacrifice of what he was going to make. Let's go to Revelation chapter 13. We just read it off the page. I could mention it, but I don't want to. Revelation 13 and 7. And it was given unto him to make war with the Kadeshim and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations, and that all that dwell upon their wrath shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. We just read that for that simple part, that we know that the sacrifice of Yahushua was taught from the beginning of the sacrifice that was separated. In the last couple of weeks we looked at that. He said, the first Adam was earthy, the second Adam was heavenly. The first Adam was made a living nephash. The second Adam was made a quickening ruach. A living soul, a quickening ruach. So even we can see right there that the sacrifice of Yahushua caused a separation. It caused a separation from death to life. It caused that separation. And since I said that, let's read Romans 6 and 17. Maybe about 6 and 19. Hello?
You understand?
Okay. 6 and 19. We'll do 17. 6 and 17. He said, But Elohim be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but you obeyed from the heart the form of doctrine which was delivered you. Being then made free from sin, you became the servants of righteousness. I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as you have yielded your member servants to uncleanliness and iniquity unto iniquity, even so now yield your member servants to righteousness unto Kadesh. For when ye were the servants of sin, you were free from righteousness. What fruit had ye in those things whereof you are now ashamed? That the end of those things is death. But now being made free from sin and become the servants to Elohim, you have your fruit unto Kadesh, and the end everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of Elohim is eternal life through Yahushua HaMashiach, our Master. So we didn't also go all the way down with it, but we know that he died, and through that death, That sacrifice caused a separation. It separated man from death and brought him life through this man's sacrifice, because he was the Word made flesh. So we would have to sit back and see how he was also engraven with those same words. How was he engraven with those words? And all of those things of that nature, and that we need to be engraven, that those words were graven on the table of his heart, and we need to see how we need to move to make sure that those words are written on the tables of our heart. Because if it's written on that place, then we have to also look at where those tables are kept and what that means, where they're kept at. But let's look at the next step of what it was I was going to grab, and it just slipped out of my mind. Oh yeah, Hebrews chapter 10. Probably about 10 and 12. Yep, 10 and 12. He said, but this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of Elohim, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified, whereof the Ruach HaKodesh also is a witness to us. For after that he had said before, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith Yahuwah. I will put my Torah into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them. And their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Now, where remission of these is, there is no more offering for sin. Now, let's go to Jeremiah 31 real fast. And let's see what we see here for writing. Because that's what he mentioned. He told you that he would also write these on your heart, what your heart would be considered a table. And we will read how your heart is considered a table. Jeremiah 31, we just finna look at verse 33, just to see what word we got for right, since that word is quoted. Well, he doesn't have right in this one. I apologize for that. He just said he'll put them in. They just got right. Well, no, he has a right though. Oh, there it is. No, my apologies. I was correct. And again, it's the same word as kathab, and it is to inscribe or to engrave or to be recorded. So just keep that in mind. And again, it's another separation, which takes us back again what we were talking about with the Ruach HaKodesh and all that. There's a continual thing referencing and specifying a separation. That's why we read the verse in John about he said that he was sanctified by Abba, and that how could he be blaspheming? Because he said he was the son of Elohim, because he was set apart for that purpose and for that cause. When you see that, Hebrews is telling us that this man has sanctified, that his sacrifice perfected everyone who has been set apart. Well, the only way you've been set apart is if this word is written on the tables of your heart. Because remember, the tables is the luach. The words are written on the table, which is luach, which is the teaching of a sacrifice that separates. So those words that are written on that table will be in your inward parts, and you will remember the sacrifice that will cause you to be separated. See, this is the part that people don't like to talk about. We will pick Proverbs 7 and 3 first, and then Proverbs 3 and 1 secondly. Proverbs 7 and 1. This is what it says. My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live. My Torah as the apple of thine eye. Bind them upon thy fingers and write them upon the table of thine heart. So the table of your heart is where the word is supposed to be written. He just told you in this new covenant that he would place his laws in your heart, and that is where he would write them. So when his laws are in your heart, this is where it takes us back to that Ruach HaKodesh, and how this is going to cause you to be sacrificed, to be set apart, because you know we got the, and then when we deal with the Kadad part in the back, that the things that are destroyed are behind you. which takes us back to what we just read in Romans. There's a simple fact of the body of sin has been destroyed because you were taught about a sacrifice that sanctifies you, that sets you apart, that separates you, that makes you Kadesh. We read the other day, what is the commandment in the law? Yahuwah said, be Kadesh because he is Kadesh. So the only things that can come unto him are things that are separate. We haven't gotten to it yet. But when you look at everything that was in the tabernacle, in the temple, these things were separated for a specific service and cause. So in order to come unto him, you have to be taught how to sacrifice yourself to come unto him for a specific purpose and cause. You cannot approach unto this man and you have not been sanctified, or you will be consumed. It's just that simple. This is the next thing he says. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman, that they may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flatter with her words. He said to keep you from a stranger that's going to flatter you. So let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And see, hold on. Let's look at me. I should know what the word stranger is, but we're just going to check. And I'm really just trying to take this to a little sit back and show you a little difference. Now, the word for stranger is Zor. It's also a stranger, but it's also an enemy or loathsome of breath. One who's alienated. Something that's common. So I want you to keep that in mind, because it said that if they're written on the tables of your heart, you won't be caught up with a stranger who will flatter you with nice words. Well, let's come back to 2 Corinthians 11 and verse 1. Excuse me. Would to Elohim you could bear with me a little in my folly, and indeed bear with me. For I'm jealous over you with godly jealousy. For I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Mashiach. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Mashiach. For if he that come preach another Yahushua whom we have not preached, or if you received another Ruach which you have not received, or another Besor which you have not accepted, you might bear well with him. He said he don't want your mind to be corrupted from the simplicity that's in Mashiach. Now, it just told you that if you write these things on the tables of your heart, or if you be taught of the sacrifice that separates, then you wouldn't be caught up with the strange woman who flatters, who tells you what you want to hear, what you like to hear, stroke your little ego a little bit. First thing we're going to look at is 1 Kings chapter 13 for a good old example of that. And then we'll go to 1 Kings 22 for another example. And we're looking at what happens when you don't write this man words on the table of your heart. That's what we're looking at. Because we could go to Eve, who he referenced, because we know she didn't have it written on the tables of her heart, because the serpent came and beguiled her. And when she was corrupted by his flatteries, what was the flattery? He told her he know that you would be like God if you did this. That was a flattering thing. So let's just look at the word for flattery here. In Proverbs 7. Let's just look at that word for flattery. Because that's how a lot of people get got. That word is kalak. And in this particular instance, it also means to divide or distribute, but it also means to be smooth. Nice, smooth words. Nice, smooth words. Words that sound good to your ear. Words that sound pleasing unto you. Things that you want to hear. We look at 1 Kings chapter 13. We'll pick it up at verse 7. 1 Kings 13 and 7. And the king said unto the man of Elohim, come home with me, and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. The man of Elohim said unto the Malach, if thou wilt give me half thy house, I will not go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water in that place. For For so it was charged me by the word of Yahuwah, saying, Eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou came. So he went another way, and returned not by the way that he came to Bethel. Now there dwelt, dang it, man. I knocked my page off. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of Elohim had done that day in Bethel, and the words which he had spoken unto the Malach. Them they told also to their Abba. And their Abba said unto them, What way went he? For his sons had seen what way the man of Elohim went, which came from Yehuda. So we will drop down, and we will go to about verse. Well, actually, we can keep going. My apologies. He said unto his son, Saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon. And he went after the man of Elohim and found him sitting under the oak. And he said unto him, Art thou the man of Elohim, thou that came from Yehuda? He said, I am. Then he said unto him, Come home with me and eat bread. He said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee, neither will I eat bread, nor drink water with thee in this place. For it was said to me by the word of Yahuwah, Thou shalt eat no bread, nor drink no water there, nor turn again to go by the way that thou came. He said unto him, I am a prophet also as thou art. And the Malachim spake unto me by the word of Yahuwah, saying, Bring him back with thee into thy house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. So he went back with him, and did eat bread in his house, and drank water. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, the word of Yahuwah came unto the prophet that brought him back. And he cried unto the man of Elohim that came from Yehuda, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah, Forasmuch as thou hast disobeyed the mouth of Yahuwah, and have not kept the commandments which Yahuwah thy Elohim commanded thee, but came back and has eaten bread and drunk water in the place which Yahuwah did say to thee, Eat no bread and drink no water, thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre of thy fathers. Now, the simple fact of where he flattered him at was, he told him he was a prophet and they were equal. And just like that, because you know what Yahuwah told you, irregardless of who he said he was, what he was, or whatever the case may be. And it all became because you didn't lay the words up on the table of your heart like he told you to. Because if that's the case, this wouldn't have occurred. You would have continued, and you would have went and you would have did exactly what he commanded you to do. Let's look at the other place in 1 Kings chapter 22. First Kings 22 and 6. The Malach of Yasharal gathered the prophets together about 400 men, and said unto them, Shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, Go up, for Yahuwah shall deliver it into the hand of the Malach. Jehoshaphat said, Is there not here a prophet of Yahuwah besides, that we may inquire of him? And the Malach of Yasharal said unto Jehoshaphat, There is yet one man, Micaiah the son of Emilah, by whom we may inquire of Yahuwah, but I hate him. For he do not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. And Jehoshaphat said, Let not the king say so. Now, when we look at Ahab, we know how evil he was. He had no word written on the tables of his heart, because he was participating in idolatry with his wife Jezebel, and all the other wicked things that he did. But he had one man who would not flatter him with his tongue. He said, He don't speak well of me. I hate him. He doesn't flatter him with his tongue. And we know how the story proceeds, because it's a lot. We're not going to read all that. You can read it on your own time. We know that he gathered up them 400 prophets, and Yahuwah allowed the lying Ruach to enter into the mouth of his prophets, and they all told him a bold-faced lie. They flattered him with his tongue, and they told him to go up and take Ramoth Gilead, because that's what he wanted to do. See, now we'll look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And this is how many people will be deceived in the end. See, if people sit back and realize this. If the word is not written on the tables of your heart, meaning that if that kathab, that separated instruction, is not even laid on the luat, or the teaching of the sacrifice that's separated, that's going to separate you or sanctify you, then you can easily be deceived by flattering words. This is why the book tells you to lay them on the tables of your heart, so you're not deceived by the mouth of a strange woman who's going to seek to flatter you. Now we reference Eve. You looked at the man of Yehuda. You looked at Ahab, and they all got because they didn't lay that word up on the tables of their heart. Person came through, that stranger, that loathsome breath. Because look at it. Let's look at it when it say a loathsome breath. Again, let me pull that word again. A loathsome, so you can understand fully what I'm trying to impart. When we look at a stranger, that's a zor. That is a loathsome breath. That is an enemy. That is an enemy. They come in to flatter with words. They're coming with smooth words. We know how Shaitan is the enemy. In the instance of the man of Yehuda, that prophet was the enemy because he lied to him. We can see that them 400 prophets were enemy to all righteousness because Yahuwah allowed the lion Ruach to enter into them to lie to this man. Because that's what they wanted to be flattered. They wanted lies. They didn't want righteousness. They didn't want truth. Because they would not allow this man to teach them how to separate themselves by sacrifice. Nevertheless, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. and 7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who now will let until he be taken out of the way. Then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the master shall consume with the ruach of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Hashatan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and all with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause Elohim shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie, and that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. When we look at both of the three people that we named, Eve died, the man of Yehuda was destroyed by a lion, Ahab died on the battlefield, all because they didn't receive a love for the truth to write them upon the tables of their heart. Therefore, when the person came through to flatter, they were deceived. So then when we come through and we look at how things will be in the end, if the word is not written upon the tables of your heart, even if you don't even get that far, even in this very exact moment in time of which you breathe, if this word is not written on the table of your heart, then a person can come through and you will be deceived. You can be flattered off. The word is not warning you of this for no reason. Proverbs 3 and 3. Just going to read the same thing over again, but just going to add a little something extra to it. Just something a little extra. My son, forget not my Torah, but keep thy heart. Let thy heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and shalom shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of Elohim and man. Trust in Yahuwah with all thine heart. Lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear Yahuwah and depart from evil. See, a lot of people end up getting got because they end up being wise in their own eyes. But that's another conversation for another day. That word for mercy is kasad. It's goodness, it's faithfulness, it's mercy, it's pity. What we get is a zakat, a samat, and a dalit. So we get a separation, we get support in the door. So we can see that through the support of this separation, you can get in the door. So that begs us to answer a question. Again, we see support. Again, we see separation to get in the door. Well, let's look at what that support would be. Psalms 23. 23 and 1, I suppose. Yahuwah is my shepherd, I shall not want. He make me to lie down in green pastures. He lead me beside the still waters. He restore my soul. He lead me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So how is Yahuwah able to give you support to cause you to be separated in the door? He's going to be able to give you strength, which is something we talked about, but also discipline. Because the rod and the staff is what's going to keep you in the way. So let's go to Hebrews chapter 9. Or 11, let me say. I'm sorry, 12. Chapter 12. 12 and 5. Hey, Tubby. And after that, 2 Timothy 3. You have forgotten the exhortation which speak unto you as unto children, my son. Despise not thou the chastening of Yahuwah, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom Yahuwah love, he chasten, and scourge every son whom he receive. If you endure chastening, Elohim deal with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasten not? But if you be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then you are bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had Abbas who are of our flesh, who corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto Abba or Ruach and live? For they truly for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his kadeshness. So we can see that his chat, because kadeshness is again telling us about separation. So you have a kat, the samak, and the dalit, a separation that supports to cause you to enter into the door. The chastening of Yahuwah is the actual support that you would need to enter into the door. Mashiach himself said, as many as I love, I chasten and rebuke. Therefore be zealous and repent. The law says in many other places about telling you about, do not despise the chastening of Yahuwah. For who Yahuwah loved, he chastened, as a father chastened his son whom he delight. Let's look at something in Job chapter 5, because Job chapter 5 is coming to my mind for a moment. Praise the Lamb. That's why I did that exact particular passage. We'll pick it up at about verse 13, I suppose. Actually 5 and 17. Straight to the point. Behold, Baruch is the man whom Elohim correct. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. That's what we would get in 2 Timothy 4. When you look in 2 Timothy, it say the word of Elohim. But let's look at it real quick. Pause. You know the book also tell you in Psalm 93, blessed is the man whom is chastened out of thy Torah. So we can see when you're looking at the mercy of Elohim, the mercy of Elohim is his actual correction. See, with the man of Yehuda, he didn't get no correction. Ahab didn't get no correction. They didn't get that. But we could turn around and we could look at Manasseh, and Manasseh got that correction, and he did turn around and bind mercy and truth upon his neck and wrote them upon the tables of his heart after he was chastised. You could read that in Chronicles. After he was chastised, he did that, and he lived totally different after that. This is again is showing us the purpose of being born again and what can occur if you learn or if you are taught of the sacrifice that separates. 2 Timothy 3 and 15. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the Kadesh scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith which is in Yahushua HaMashiach. All scripture is given by inspiration of Elohim and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of Elohim may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. So the word Elohim is you will get a gain from the correction, which would be your support, which is that rod. Since we need to establish that the rod is correction just on general principle, let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 4, because we just want to be thorough. For anybody who may not understand how the word would symbolically use that, we want to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and about verse 18. 1 Corinthians 4 and about verse 18. Now some are puffed up as though I would not come to you, but I will come to you shortly if the master will. And will know not the speech of them which are puffed up, but the power. For the kingdom of Elohim is not in word, but in power. What will ye? Shall I come unto you with the rod, or in love, or in the ruach of meekness? Now, of course, I know that y'all know what that is, because the book tell you, you know what I'm saying? Put the rod on your son's back. Beat thy son with the rod, and you'll spare his soul from hell. Well, that correction and that discipline and that chastisement, you can come back to Job chapter 5, is how you could get the support that will separate you to enter into the door. He said, he said, chasten thy son where there is hope, and spare not for his crying. We know that Yahushua himself was chastened for our sins and our iniquities. And that is the only way that you're going to be able to get in the door. He said, every son whom he received must be scourged. They must be chastised. So in order for you to enter into that door to get that separation, that is your support. He will support you through the discipline. He will support you through the chastisement. He will support you through the tribulation and persecution. He told you he'd give you a comforter. He told you in the world you have much tribulation, but in him you would have good cheer. But you'll have shalom. He said, be of good cheer. He told you this. What's that, man? Yeah, man. He'd already told you this. It's already been explained. It's another place where I'm trying to think.
Come on, Papa.
I'm trying to think where the place is in my head. Oh yeah, in Acts,
Come on, Papa.
he simply told you what? That through much tribulation we must enter into the kingdom of Elohim. Much tribulation. So then we have to sit back and understand, if we have to go through these afflictions and these sufferings, and Peter told you that to not be amazed of the fiery trial which try you, and that the same things that are being done to you are being done to your brethren that are in the world, then you have to know that Yahushua will be that support. That's where that comforter come in. He said, I won't leave you comfortless. That would be the support to cause you to enter into the door through that separation. What caused Yahushua to be separated? It was his afflictions. It was his sufferings. That is what caused him to be separated. His suffering for the word's sake, for the name of Yahuwah's sake. Does that mean that you'll be beaten and killed? Is that what we're talking about? No. We're talking about exactly what the book tells you to do in 1 Peter chapter 4, to suffer in the flesh, to cease from sin. And because you choose to take a stand against unrighteousness and ungodliness and to separate yourself, then people will speak against you falsely and say all manner of evil against you because you don't run to the same excess of riot. Nevertheless, 5 and 17 in Job yet again. Behold, Baruch is the man whom Elohim correct. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of Elohim. Listen what he said. For he makes sore and he bind up. He wound and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. So y'all should already know that this is talking about, the just man falling 7 times and rising again. He gives you an inkling to it when he said he makes sore and bind up, he wound and his hands make whole. The book say he doesn't wound willingly. He say he binds, he wounds, and he makes whole. Which takes you back to what we already read in 2 Timothy, when he said that the man of Elohim should be perfect because of the correction and the chastening of the word, the reproof of the word. That is your support to get you in the door. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it come. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of their wraths. For thou shalt be in the league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at shalom with thee. Thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in shalom, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and shall not sin. This is what he said happens when you get corrected. And when you go through all of that, that support that gets you in the door will cause you not to sin. Let's look at something in Revelation chapter 3. And it also takes you to the fact that he was wounded, made whole, and that he fell in 6 troubles, even 7, and Elohim delivered him, which is the resurrection of the dead, is that through this chastening and suffering, because one man wrote these words on the table of his heart, that he was taught, because he was slain from the foundation of the world, so he was taught of a sacrifice that would cause him to be separated. He came and taught you about a sacrifice that would cause you to be separated, which you who are willing will deal with in more detail on the Shabbat. And I forgot where I was going. Oh, 1 John chapter 3. 3 and 4. And that is not on my phone. I try to hit one more point. And that's that Ark of the Covenant. And then we're going to slide. Give me a second, because I ain't got it in my book no more. 3 and 4. 1 John 3 and 4. Whosoever commits sin transgress also the Torah, for sin is transgression of the Torah. Ye know that he was manifested to take away our sins, and in him is no sin. Again, what do we see in Job? Let me pull the book. Let me open my book up. Pull that verse out. And read it again. That Job 5 says, thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in shalom. Thou shalt visit thy habitation and shalt not sin. Your tabernacle being in shalom is the authority to destroy the authority attached to chaos. That's your physical body. So you destroyed the body of sin, like it say in Romans. You'll visit your habitation. Your habitation is the land, New Jerusalem. And we know that he said that there would be nothing that enter into the city that defiles or commits any manner of iniquity. Say pause. Zephaniah 3. I forgot. I know we're in 1 John, but Zephaniah 3. Go to Zephaniah 3. If I can get to Zephaniah 3, we might can make something happen, wouldn't we? There we go. That says Zechariah, not Zephaniah. Like the page don't want to present itself for the people. Don't you come over here. Zephaniah chapter 3. What is the verse that we require? Zephaniah 3, huh? Make it about verse 11. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all thy doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me. For then I will take away out of the midst of thee them that rejoice in thy pride, and thou shalt be no more haughty because of my Kadesh mountain. I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of Yahuwah. So he's going to leave you an afflicted and humbled people. So just pause. We're going to look at it. Look like we're going to might go a little bit longer. Just a tad. We look at the word afflicted. It is anai. It's afflicted, a humble, weak, lowly people. Afflicted people. Which is what you just seen in Job. Poor is dull. Low, poor, weak, then one who is low. So when we look at that and we swing to Matthew 5 just real quickly, you don't have to go there yourself. When we look at Matthew 5 and we look at verse 5, it says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Why would they be blessed? Because they're lowly. Just like he said, that's what he said he would leave in the midst of thee, an afflicted and poor people that are trust in the name of Yahuwah. You turn around and you look at Yahusha, he was an afflicted and poor man. He trusted in the name of Yahuwah, that his father would raise him from the dead. He was right there in the midst of the people, and they killed him. Come on back to Zephaniah 3. All because he wrote these words on the tables of his heart. So he was taught a sacrifice that would cause him to be separated. The remnant of Yasharal shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. So how did they get to not doing the iniquity or speaking lies and not having it? Because he said they would feed and lie down. Well, we already seen he lead them beside still waters. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Yahusha actually got comfort from the rod and the staff because he received the Ruach HaKadosh, the book 10. That's what he called it. He called it the comforter. You will get comfort. You can receive the Ruach HaKadosh if you allow this man to rebuke, to chasten you in order so you can get the support that will separate you to enter into that door. Because you're not getting into this man's door if you have not been humbled, which is the purpose of the chastening, is to humble you. He said he was heard and that he feared. He said he humbled himself unto death, even the death of the stake. That support is what separated him to get in the door. So are you going to sit back and take that support to separate you to get in the door because you were taught of a sacrifice that would separate you, which in turn allowed you to receive that mercy? See, again, it's going to come back to the... See, we don't even look at the chastening of Yahuwah. We don't look at his rebuke as mercy, as goodness and kindness and pity. Because he had pity on Yahusha. Say he heard him in that he feared, and the captain of salvation was made perfect through sufferings, that he may bring many more unto life through him. This is simple. It's very, very simple. Sing, O daughter of Zion, shout, O Yasharal, be glad, rejoice with all the heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. You who have taken away thy judgments, he cast out thy enemy, the Malach of Yasharal, even Yahuwah is in the midst of thee, thou shalt see evil no more. And that day shall be said to Jerusalem, fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thy hands be slack. Yahuwah thy Elohim is in the midst of thee. In the midst of thee is mighty. He will save, he will rejoice over thee, he will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. I will gather thee them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. And we'll deal with that a little bit more on the Shabbat, because if you know it says solemn assembly, look in the Torah and see where you see solemn assemblies at. Look at what's being told to you, and you can get an inkling of what day this is he's talking about. I got one more thing to set up for the Shabbat. 1 Kings 8 and 9. I got one more thing to set up, and then we're going to depart, because I'm just trying to set it up. Make it 8 and 5. I feel like I'm leaving something out. Oh yeah, let me finish this 1 John 3 and 4. But go ahead and grab you 1 Kings 8. My bad. Let me finish this 1 John. Whosoever commits sin transgress also the Torah. But sin is the transgression of the Torah. And you know that he would manifest to take away our sins, and in him is no sin. Whosoever abide in him sin not. Whosoever sin have not seen him, neither known him. Little children, let no man deceive you. He that do righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. He that commits sin is of the devil. For the devil sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of Elohim was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Whosoever is born of Elohim do not commit sin, for a seed remain in him, and he cannot sin, because he is born of Elohim. And this the children of Elohim are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever do not righteousness is not of Elohim, neither he that love not his brother. That man said, if you do any unrighteousness, you are not of Elohim. And if you don't love your brother. Now that's something to swallow on, and we'll deal with that another time. But the purpose of what we read that for is that he said that about your tabernacle and the visit of your habitations. Your tabernacle will have peace. You'll visit your habitation and there wouldn't be no sin. And why is that the case? Because this man was chastened, and that he was wounded and he was made whole. Because remember, it said he had to destroy the works of the devil. So in order for him to destroy the works of the devil, he had to be wounded and he had to fall into 6 troubles, even 7. 6 troubles, even 7. 6 troubles, even 7. Yeah. 1 Kings chapter 8. Verse 5. Make it 4. And they brought up the ark of Yahuwah in the tabernacle, the congregation, and all the Kadesh vessels that were in the tabernacle. Even those did the priests and the Levites bring up. Yeah, I'll wait for that. And the Malik Solomon and all the congregation of Yasharal that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen, that they could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And I think I'll wait for that as well. And the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, and unto his place, and into the oracle of the house, to the most Kadesh place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their 2 wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the stays thereof above. And they drew out the stays, that the ends of the stays were seen out in the Kadesh place before the oracles, and they were not seen without. And they are there unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables of stone, which Yahuwah had put at Horeb, when Yahuwah made a covenant with the children of Yasharal, when they came out of the land of Mizraim. Nothing in the ark except for the 2 tables of stone. That's all that's in there. Ain't nothing else in there besides that. That word for ark is aron. Just means chest, ark of the covenant, money chest, coffin. You get an aleph, a rosh, a u, and a nun. So if we get an aleph, we get strength or leader or ox. You know, when you get rosh, you get the head, the first. And I know we still call for Revelation 3. We're going to get there. You get the u, which is the nail or the peg. And then you get the nun, which is the seed or life. So when we see this, we get a strength of the first of a sacrifice, which leads to a seed. And then you see how that is what we just seen in 1 John chapter 3 all the way live. So when you look at, there's nothing in the ark but the 2 tables of stone. The tables is the luach, which is to teach you of a sacrifice that separates, that are inside the ark, which is the strength of the first head, and we know that he was slain from the foundation of the world, the beginning of all creation, which is the nail that comes to a seed. So we can see how the strength of the first sacrifice leads to life, because that's all that's inside the ark. So if you take these words that teach you how to sacrifice and you lay them in your chest, then the son of Elohim is inside of you, and now you have life. And that's why I say we'll deal with this in greater detail on the Shabbat. But we have to set that stage. And we set it with these 2 verses, and we will depart. Ezekiel chapter 11, and then turn around to 2 Corinthians 3. But I just want to leave y'all with that to consider and to think about. The Aron and the Luach. The teaching of the sacrifice that will separate you. We looked at how it separates you from life and death. And that same teaching of a sacrifice that separates you is the chastisement, which separates you to become a son of Elohim, which can cause you to be accepted, which separates you from sin to cause you to be righteous. And then you take these 2 tables, stone. You take this teaching that's caused you to be separated by sacrifice, and you place them in an ark, which means you place them in the strength of the head of the sacrifice of life, which takes you to John 15. I and you and me. And whoever abides in me, bring forth much fruit. And he that sanctifieth and he that sanctify, all are one, for which cause he is not ashamed to call them brethren. And he sanctified them once and for all by the sacrifice of his body, that he might take his Torah and write them upon your heart. Ezekiel 11 and 18. And they shall come to them, they shall take away all the detestable things thereof, and all the abominations thereof from thence. And I will give them one heart, and I will put a new ruach within you, and I will take the stony heart out of their flesh, and I will give them a heart of flesh, and that they may walk in my statutes and keep my ordinances and do them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim. But as for them whose heart walk after their detestable things and their abominations, I will recompense their way upon their own heads, saith Yahuwah Elohim. So you want to sin? He say, you like death, I'm going to give you death. 2 Corinthians 3. But I just want you to consider what we're looking at when you think about the ark and what's in the ark. 2 Corinthians 3 and 3. We just want that verse and we out. Well, 3 and 1. Do we begin again to commend ourselves, or need we, as some others, epistles of commendation to you, or letters of commendation from you? You are our epistle, written in our hearts, known and read of all men. For as much as you are manifestly declared to be the epistle of Mashiach, ministered by us, not written with ink, but with the ruach of the living Elohim, not in tables of stone, but in fleshly tables of the heart. So that fleshly table of the heart, not written on stone, because you know stone is hard, and you notice how several times he told us that we were hard-hearted. So he had to give you a heart of flesh to make you soft-hearted, soft enough to go before him weeping and mourning and sacrificing yourself before him to receive the gift of everlasting life. But hallelujah for Yahusha and the word.